Okay, because it tells me to.
Cool. Okay. Um, Hi everyone. We have my friend Simran, who I am going to be interviewing, not a formal interview, but more of like just a conversation of the whole topic about capitalism and colonization and how the environment and how it affects your nature surrounding you. So Simran, if you want to state your name, your occupation, and like what do you do?
So my name is Simran Jaswani. I currently work as a medical assistant, but I'm also in nursing school. I work full time, and then I also go to school full time for nursing.
Nice. What do you plan to do with your nursing degree after you graduate?
I want to work in the cardiovascular ICU. I feel like America has a lot of cardiac issues, and it's really interesting how much of it can be prevented. So I feel like working with those kind of patients will be fun to just educate them, just work with them, help them lead like a healthier lifestyle.
Nice. So, I came here to pose the question of how does capitalism and colonization affect the environment and nature surrounding you? So, could
Mhm.
you tell me a little bit more about like your experiences of like how this affects you?
Yeah. So I think when I think of capitalism, I also think of like my job. For example, that's like the first thing I think of. Um, and I feel like it's had an impact because so I'm not originally from America. So I think coming into like the culture of America, capitalism is huge. And I think in a way it's kind of unfair, I guess, because like it's like the thing of like the rich get richer, poor get poorer kind of thing. And at work, like if you're like poor and middle class, it's so hard to like work up to get to where you want to be. But the rich, like I said, get richer because at work, like you have a fixed pay. You have to like work to get all the way up, and that's not the easiest thing to do. Um, and it's just like such like a hierarchy system that like you have to follow, like, and it's just like certain ways you have to be in like a capitalist world. Like it's it's hard. I think people just like have accepted it as their norm to the point that they don't realize they're just doing it based on what like society has made normal. Um, and I know a good point is that like it really does affect our mental health a lot because like you're working day in and day out for something that is deemed normal, and it's like it really is the cause of like a lot of people's like anxiety and depression as far as like making bills, working nonstop trying to make a good impression to like get like raises and stuff like that. Like it's just like you're constantly going in like a capitalist society.
Yeah, it's like one endless cycle that like just doesn't stop because
Yeah,
we need a roof over our head, we need to feed ourselves. And it's like if we don't do these certain things, we're not gonna be able to do those things that we
exactly.
need to survive.
Yeah, and I think people don't realize how much like a lot of it in America is like it's just heightened so much more here because things are like I feel like life is more affordable somewhere else, but in America, like it's just you just take it as like the norm of like trying to like pay these bills and do all that stuff, like, and it's not as affordable as you think it is.
So in the beginning, you stated that like you weren't from here and it was kind of like a shock to see the whole
Mhm,
culture of capitalism. Could you kind of
mhm.
describe the culture before you moved to America?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm originally from Jamaica. The culture there, I mean, obviously it's still the same bills to pay, you have to work and stuff like that. But in a sense, things are a little bit more affordable, I guess you could say. There is, I would say, less opportunity there, but the society is just so much more, how do I say it? Like it's more of like a community, like we all kind of work together for the same goal versus America. It's very, very individualistic, which is kind of a culture shock to me. Um, and like in Jamaica, like you work, it's almost like you work with your boss to kind of figure out solutions. Here, just like a hierarchy system where like your boss is on top of you, then is you, and you have to like follow orders. But I feel like in Jamaica, like it's more so like you work together to kind of figure out a goal.
That reminds me a lot of like indigenous practices. It's
Yeah.
kind of just like, you built your community. Well, not built it, you are born into this community that has already been
Hmm.
established for like certain periods of time before you. And then,
Hmm.
you work together to like get your resources, get your food, and be sustainable versus
Yeah, and I
here.
feel like
Yeah.
Yeah, like what you said, it makes more sense to do it that way because you get a lot more done with like more hands on deck kind of thing. Like you're building it together.
Mhm. It sucks. Like honestly, America sucks.
It does. That's what I was saying. Like I feel like we've just accepted it to be how it is, and we don't like unless you come from somewhere else or like you're exposed to it, like you never know that there's anything different than this lifestyle.
So, like, in regards to colonization, do you feel that America has basically caused an erasure of a lot of cultures? Because, like, what you've been saying, that it was like a culture shock to move in here.
Yeah. I do think it has. It was a really big culture shock because it's like coming to a society that's like predominantly white, it was definitely a big change for me. And like I said, seeing the norms here and seeing the different culture here. Because even Jamaica, for example, was colonized by the British. So like obviously there was changes there, but we're independent now. Um, so I feel like in a lot of aspects, it's mostly, for example, you see like the white man on top kind of thing, and that's just like the saying, like you work for the white man kind of thing. And I feel like it's very true here. Like I feel like, for lack of better words, white people have had like they've had generations before them that have built their wealth and stuff like that versus people of color or other cultures and this is like we have to start from the ground and build ourselves up. So it's like people that have already had an established wealth or an established company or what or business or whatever it is, like it's so much easier for them, and I don't think they understand this like the struggles that people of color or like immigrants or stuff like that have to go through once they come here. So
Yeah, it's like that hierarchy of like already having that privilege based off the
mm-hmm.
color of your skin. And I
Yeah,
feel like that shouldn't
I
always be the
said
case.
mm-hmm. Like I said, I feel like it's just been like accepted as a norm, and like you see like for example when you look in like textbooks or TV or whatever, like you see white people being the doctor or you see white people being like the lawyer, like whatever. Like I feel like we're all conditioned from a young age to not see ourselves in those spaces. So like you really have to like have a strong support system or like really believe in yourself in order to get to that doctor goal or to that lawyer, whatever it is, things like that.
Do you see like to kind of like bring in like hope to this? Do you see like hope for America to change in some aspects?
I do. I think more and more like people of color, immigrants and stuff, they are getting more empowered. And I think slowly but surely, like spaces are being welcomed for those different populations. So I do think there's hope. I do think we still have a very long way to go, just because there are some people that have very like old ideas still stuck in their head, and that's how they were raised and stuff. But I do think slowly but surely, like different cultures are being welcomed, like new ideas are being like introduced into different professions and things like that.
Yeah. Um, so I think kind of like to pose like the last question, um, do you like in your career, do you implement like the sense of care and like what I mean by care is like
No, it's okay.
so like not so like what I mean by care is like so when I first started in like environmental science, I would view
Mm-hmm.
like animals as having like rights and like ecosystems as
Mm-hmm.
having rights. And like that to me is like the whole sense of care. And you know, just like caring for the things around you and just having like that intrinsic value approach to your
Mm-hmm.
whole like career. Would you say that you implement that?
I definitely do. The reason I laugh is because my college has like a whole thing of caring science with us. Like we literally are taught to do things from like a caring perspective versus just like the medical side of things. That's what I'm doing nursing. And I think because we learn in such like a holistic way, and I think me personally, I bring like my background is such like a cultural, like a different cultural background that like I would want, for example, my culture to be to be like respected and stuff. So I feel like in the same sense, whenever I like introduce myself to a patient, like I'm always able to see what their culture is, see what their cultural norms are. If they even don't speak English, like just like try to make ways for them to be comfortable, because just because they live here and they don't speak English, for example, doesn't mean that they should be treated any differently. And I feel like that's such a big stigma to have, like not being able to speak English and like people just treating them differently, which is really, really sad. So I feel like for me, like I definitely approach things with a very like caring, I guess you could say, mindset, where each person has a right to be there. Each person has a right to their own health, their health care, to knowing what treatment they're getting, just empowering them to have the best decision or the best treatment plan for them. So yeah, I do feel like I go into my profession in a very like caring mindset.
That's good. That's good that like your college does that, because I feel like science is like always like just about the hard facts of things, and we never really put like joy or like our own personal touch to like science. And it's just like, why are we even doing science?
Right.
It comes to like that
Honestly,
point.
yeah. And that's why I said the whole thing about doctors too, is because I mean, I feel like it's seen so differently on TV, where like the doctors are so involved, but truthfully the doctors are not as involved as you would think. And even more so, like that's why it helps to have doctors from a different like cultural background, because they can also understand the patient. Like a patient's diet, for example, if that's what you're focusing on, it might have like all these cultural foods. If you're gonna tell them to just eat like pasta and cereal or whatever, like that doesn't really fit into their culture. So I feel like having a doctor that can also help and understand someone's like cultural foods and things like that, and like learn how to incorporate that into their new diet, whatever it is that they need to have, like it makes the world of a difference to be fully understood, versus just it just be like black and white, like, oh, you have to eat this, just for like as an example.
And that's good that you say that, because I feel like a lot of people from different cultures have like different diversified minds and bringing different approaches to everything.
Yeah.
Not just like your typical questions that you would be asked in like an exam. For example, um, I don't know, what's like a good like question in a nursing exam, like anatomy wise?
Anatomy, you kind of just ask like if they have like bowel movements. You ask like if you want to, it depends on like the body part, but if you want to do eyes, you can see like if their eyes are like reactive to light, you can do that. If they have like full range of motion in their arms, any chest pain or anything like that, you feel for like different pulses on different parts of their like arms and legs. Um, yeah, it's a full like body assessment that you have to do. But a question, I mean, you could ask them about their diet. You could ask them about like any like rituals and stuff they follow, like what their day to day at work looks like how much like physical activity they have on the daily, things like that. If they smoke, if they drink.
Makes sense. Um, I think that's good.
Okay. What were you trying to
Do you
ask? Because
want
you said like when you ask a nursing question, like what were you trying to like get at? I guess.
um I guess like how would you implement that approach of care into
Mm-hmm.
like your typical, I guess, like
Mm-hmm.
assessment for
Yeah.
a patient?
I guess like I said, it really depends on what's going on, but like just finding small tips and tricks like that would kind of help them. Like if they're being given a medication, you kind of tell them like, hey, like don't take it at bedtime if it's supposed to keep you wide awake. Like you tell them like small tips like that's gonna keep you awake, or like if they're in a certain culture that has like different rituals or different things that they do, like try schedule a different time to like do whatever practice they have to do, or like I'm trying to think of, there's honestly a lot. Trying to think, or like if a patient has like dementia or something like that, or like Alzheimer's, like you don't want to have like a cluttered space in their house because they're going to be kind of forgetful and walk anywhere, versus a doctor who just like give them medication just to treat them. But us, we have to think like, okay, when they get up, they can't like have like a whole cluttered space because they're going to fall down. Um, Things like it's just like very, very like small tips and tricks that you give them. to like care for like the full person, like give them like a diet plan and all that kind of stuff, and support groups. We all give them support groups, which is really, really big.
I feel like that those little like aspects make the whole big difference in like an experience when you go into, your appointment for whatever your appointment is.
Yeah, it does.
Uh, yeah. So how would you say, I guess you've said like the nature surrounding the part. How would you say like it's affected your environment, like your overall personal experience? The
What
two
school? Oh,
no, the two points like colonization and capitalism.
how it's affected my. Say that again one more time. Sorry.
Your own personal experience, like your own environment around you.
Um, let's see. I mean, speaking on my personal life, like I said, like capitalism, like you're always trying to like go up in the company kind of thing, and you just always like need to do more, I guess, which is also very, very stressful. Colonization, it's a little bit hard because I do live in South Florida, so we have a lot of like cultural, like we have a lot of like different cultures down here, which so it's good to see that difference. But I still feel like in a sense, like there's always, like I said, like you see on commercials, you see on ads, you see on anything, like it's always like a white person on there. And it just shows how much they've colonized this country, and they're just seen as like the top of the top, and like it's a very, very hard change to even happen, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is like a really good discussion, and I feel like people should be more open about like having this discussion in like the workplace and like the classroom.
Yeah.
Just like there we have like different approaches to everything and different viewpoints for everything. And I feel
Hmm.
like the more that we diversify our mind and the more that we think in like different ways, it's good for like whatever work field you're in, because
Yeah.
those different ways are going to include more people and be more inclusive of the people that come into
Yeah.
your workplace.
It is. No, you're right. I feel like everyone has their own like perspective on things, and like if you're gonna, for example, not hire someone based on the discrimination, like you're really losing out because you never know who's gonna have like the next like great idea, and it could come from a mind that of a person that you wouldn't normally hire, kind of thing.
Yeah. So just to
But
like
yeah.
gather everything, do you have like any final thoughts to say?
Um, not really, but I mean, I do think that there's hope, like I said, for this country to do better. It's just gonna take education and people being very open minded, um, and like just seeing different cultures in spaces of like politics or in spaces that like can actually make a difference. So that like seeing someone in that space, like it inspires like a little girl that might never have seen herself in that space, or a little boy that's never seen himself in that space. And I think, like I said, it's hard to get into the capitalist society being a person of color or an immigrant or anything like that, but slowly but surely it's happening.
We need to keep that hope up.
We do.
Okay. Well, thank you for all your thoughts. I really appreciate them, and I'm sure my classmates will too.
I hope so.
I'm gonna stop recording.